Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Cast, Tom.
Cast.
Hi, everybody.
Hello,
Welcome
everyone.
to a brand new MASKHOLES. It's been a minute.
It has
and
been.
we should. This should be more in the rotation quicker in the future. Just
Right.
if people wonder.
We had some other ones that, we sort of needed to get finished first just because some of our patrons had these things commissioned for quite a while. So we needed to finish a few others up. But
Yeah, we had some finales recently.
we
so
did,
we're in
yes. Yeah. Draft Action Hero, a couple others.
Yeah. But now we're balls deep in Jason Voorhees.
Right in his mask hole.
Yeah, and I want to, just at the top of this, thanks to Chris Shanovich,
Thank
our
you.
producer, who, made this all happen. This is a delight, obviously.
Yeah, and
fucking MASKHOLES.
We've said it before. It's incredible that we hadn't done a Jason show on our own until this point.
Yeah. It took a
really
little
is.
push. So thank you, Chris Shanovich, for that push. Because, now we're
Now we're in it. Now
doing
there's no
it.
turning
we're
back.
We're doing it.
Dave, we might
yeah.
even do Friday the 13th, the series. I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling.
But right now, we're on Friday the 13th, Part 2. That's the title.
That's the title.
Nothing else.
They don't get
This
cute
is,
with it for a while.
Yeah, this is which year is this? 1981.
1981.
This is director Steve Miner, who this is his first film. He would go on to direct Friday the 13th Part 3, and then he would direct the 1985 film House, Warlock, and Tom, Wild's Hearts Can't Be Broken, Forever Young, fucking Big Bully, and then Halloween H2O and Lake Placid. What a legend.
Yeah.
What a legend.
This guy's a real hero.
Yeah. He's my hero. He also did the 2008 Day of the Dead.
That's too
which
bad.
I haven't seen that. But, a fucking, Lake Placid. Everybody loves that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also did an
But how-
episode of Diagnosis Murder.
Still, I like this career. I like Halloween H2O. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Forever Young is,
It's a fine movie if you can
it's
get
a
past the
fine
Mel
movie.
Gibson of it all.
right, yeah. Who else is in that? Someone else is in that.
I feel like it's like Madeline Stowe. I have not seen it.
Elijah Wood and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie
That's
Lee
who
Curtis.
else
There
is
you
in
go.
it.
I haven't seen it in like 30 years. So
Yeah.
it's been a minute.
Yeah, why would you?
Why would I go back
It's
and
about
revisit
a
Forever Young?
cryogenically frozen pilot.
I mean,
man.
it was a good movie at the time, but why would I now want to go back and watch a cryogenically unfrozen racist be acclimated to
No.
Mel Gibson?
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's all right,
And I
man.
mean, also, I'm sure the character is kind of racist too, right? Because he's from like the 30s.
Well, not in the movie.
So it's like a
obviously. He's
racist-
supposed to be a
yeah.
boy. He's like a Boy Scout in the movie.
All right. It just feels like two secret racists, like a secret racist playing a secret racist. Not so secret for Mel Gibson now, but at the time.
No, the secret's out.
Secret's out.
This is a
But
Jason
we're not
podcast.
yeah, I was going to say, we're talking about Friday the 13th Part 2.
Welcome to
So
Forever
this is,
Young cast.
Yeah. So this takes place. This is the.
This
according to the
this takes
video
place
game,
in
Tackanacker Lodge.
1985.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah. The timeline. We'll get into the
Yeah, we-
timeline as it gets weirder and weirder.
we loves the timeline of Friday the 13th here at Gamefully.
Yeah.
Because
but this is
the first film takes place very specifically in 1980 because it's 25 years after the 1955 murder or whatever it was.
right.
And then this one is explicitly 5 years after the first movie.
Yeah. So this is, and the timeline gets more and more fucked.
It gets
as
more,
characters.
right.
Tommy Jarvis has to age like 15 years at one point. So does Tina. They jump like 30 years.
They
in this
do
series.
to the point where I mean, we'll talk about it in great detail, but Jason Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, takes place after 9/11.
Yeah, that takes place chronologically 2003, I believe.
Yeah.
Because Tina has to age for
About 10 years.
10 years, and then Tommy has to age.
He ages about 6. It's
wild.
There are massive jumps of time in the Friday the 13th series.
Yeah. But right now, we're in the 1985, made in 1981. Crystal Lake is shut down. This is the Packanack Lodge, which is a great level in the game.
Might be my favorite.
It might be my favorite too.
My favorite
think it's a really good
favorite's
one.
either Packanack or the Part 5 one, the really
with the
huge
Orange
map.
Grove.
Yeah.
So this is about a group
Part 4
of.
is really good too. Sorry, Dave.
It's all good.
They're all great.
This
It's a great
is
game.
about
It's a great game.
a training camp for camp counselors, which is lame as shit.
Well, I think he's opening next summer, right? So this summer is about repairing the camp.
I just think that's a lame thing for adults to do. I guess they're supposed to be teenagers.
They're supposed to be, but it's in this era of the 70s, early 80s, and really early 80s is still 70s, where it's impossible to tell how old anyone is. It's like it's like a real Scooby-Doo mystery machine type situation.
Because of the nature of the movie, although, I mean, you know the trivia of this one, the actors, are at least over 18, which isn't actually the case of this movie.
Except
which
for
became
one. Yeah.
a big problem in post.
Yeah.
There was, for whatever reason, there was a 16-year-old actress who was given a sex scene, and then after the fact, Paramount was like, what? No, destroy the footage.
Yes. From what I had read and heard is that
I don't think the director knew.
No, it's a Lawrence Fishburne type situation where Lawrence Fishburne lied about his age to be in Apocalypse Now. Which is a similar situation where he was also like 16. But
and this is the Apocalypse Now of horror movies.
This is the Apocalypse Now of horror movies. But yes, there is an actress in this film who was underage and they did not know, and there was a nude scene involving her, but obviously that footage does not exist.
It does not. Fun trivia for this film, I guess.
Completely deleted from the face of the earth, as it should have been.
But for the most part, it's basically one 16-year-old and a bunch of 30-year-olds.
Right, like Paul, the guy who runs the lodge, could be 20, could be 33. No way to tell.
No way to tell. So also, I want to note, this is a very interesting, because I was trying to put myself in the shoes of the people watching this at the time, because the first movie is Pamela Voorhees. We don't know Jason as a murderer, as a killer.
No, this is very, very different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big pivot. Although when you think about how do you make a sequel to this movie, this is what you do. Like, what else would
Jason's
happen?
kind of the obvious
yeah
thing to do. But it's interesting to watch this one and the one right before it, because next movie in Part 3, all bets are off. We're in full blown. We're in Jason country now. But in these two movies, they're much more like the 70s slashers. It's contemporaries. Like, these are closer to like Halloween or Black Christmas.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They
Christmas.
Absolutely are.
So like this movie does a lot. Just real quick, this movie does a lot with like misdirection, with really long takes that are like teasing the jump. It does the same thing that the first movie does, the Psycho thing, where it plays around with the characters, so you're not really sure who the main one is for a while.
It's more of a murder mystery.
It is, yeah. They're treating it much more like a thriller than what the movie becomes when they figure out Jason is the main character and nobody else really matters.
Exactly. And he doesn't even have his mask still. He is wearing a burlap sack. He is Saxon.
This is pillowcasin.
Yeah. And he is, still a delight. So they're
my favorite thing about one of my many favorite things. This is a delightful one to talk about Jason, just what he's up to during the events of this film.
Oh,
but
yeah.
One of my favorite things about him that I always forget because it's such a quick reveal, and I haven't seen this one as much, is that when they pull his mask off, he kind of looks like John Belushi.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he looks like the drummer for a grunge band.
Yeah. He looks like John Belushi.
Yeah, which is amazing. They also his long hair they got rid of for the later ones.
They did, but they were trying to. Well,
there's some fan contention. They were saying like maybe this is a fantasy of Ginny.
There's a lot of disagreement over the ending, yes, in the Friday
Yeah.
the 13th community, because nobody can agree on what happened to Paul.
Yeah.
Nobody can agree whether or not, because the first one ended the same way with Jason jumping out. So, and then it was just a dream. So there's like a pretty even split of people who think that was just the same thing as the first film, where it was Ginny having like a paranoid dream or a delusion after all the stress she's been through, or whether it literally happened. He really busted in, and then she just woke up on a stretcher and doesn't know what happened. But I see the argument for both, honestly.
Yeah, they were playing it real fast and loose. Because my last note was, what the fuck happened to Paul? But I can see both. There's also like the ending. So this will come at no surprise if you remember the last shot of this movie. At the end, the headless Pamela's head, her severed head, was supposed to open her eyes at the end.
Yeah.
Which you can tell because the shot, it's clearly not a dummy head.
Right, it's clearly a real person.
But they cut it because they were like, that's silly. And it's like, is it? I mean, do you even know what you're making? Like that's the vibe I got where they're like,
they're
playing
man.
Well, they're playing it fast and loose with like where the series will head because they didn't know necessarily.
Sure, and
right?
they weren't like necessarily, like the original vision for this movie, which I'm pretty sure we talked about in the last one, was to be like an anthology series, and each one would just happen to take place on Friday the 13th, sort of like the original idea for Halloween. So they might not have been thinking of continuing with these characters, but like I think there's intent there because like ambiguous endings like that are a big hallmark of horror movies, and like
for sure. But
I think they were still like this one and the first one. They're still kind of trying to be more subtle and a little more artful. You know?
Yeah. Like we said with the ending, it could be fantasy, could be not, which is like the first one, which makes more sense when you think of it as an anthology of like they weren't trying to build upon it. So it's like a weird fantasy of Jason and her being like, he's still down there. And then it ends. And then they're like, okay, that's that story. Time for a new story.
Right, time for a new
one.
But
yeah, they didn't do that. So we actually we don't start with the camp. We start with Alice dying.
We sure
the first
do.
Film.
We sure do.
Apparently because that actress was like, please kill me off. I have some weird fans. She had some issues with fans.
Gene Siskel fucking doxed her.
Oh, shit. What an asshole.
Yeah, because he hated the film so much, he fucking doxed her, and he doxed Sean S. Cunningham, telling his readers to send them hate mail about how bad Friday the 13th was. And it's like, you piece of shit.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, so she got stalkers. Like, so her part in this movie is probably disturbingly close to real life.
Yeah, just her paranoid.
She is just. It's 2 months after the events of the first film, this prologue. She's living in just like paranoid reclusiveness in this house in the suburbs because of everything that happened to her, and she's drawn these, self-portraits that look like Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah.
Trying to cope with what happened to her, and then she gets turbo murdered by Jason.
Yeah, she gets ice picked. And so then we go to this Packanack Lodge, which is near Camp Death, which is the Crystal Lake, Camp Lake,
Blood.
basically. Camp Blood, sorry. And then they're gathering all these people to be counselors, and it's like counselor training camp, which again I find is very funny. I hope they're at least getting paid to be here, but I don't think so. Run by Paul, this giant man, and Ginny, his assistant girlfriend.
Ginny,
sorry. And this movie fucking moves. It's an hour 20. So they roast marshmallows. They tell ghost stories, which is that training for the camp? Because like he tells the story later. He's like, how'd the story go? And like, did it work out? Like it feels like they're training to be counselors, doing like ghost stories. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe they are.
Because then they go inside and listen to music and stuff. Because like that's not the end of their night. That feels like the end of their workday, if that makes sense. But he tells a story about Alice. Says she disappears 2 months later. 2 months later, vanished. Blood everywhere. No one knows what happened to her. And I was like, well,
I mean,
there's a hint. There's a hint in that sentence. Yeah,
they probably took a guess.
Yeah, blood everywhere, but no one knows what happened. It's like, I kind of know what happened.
Yeah, I can piece these breadcrumbs together.
Yeah, they go in and they have their party where they're like, some are playing chess, a couple of them are dancing.
It's just so random.
They're like NPCs. It's so funny.
We have sex creep Scott.
Yep. Oh, Scott, I want to
relentlessly hitting on Terry, and it's just like he's a guy who's like halfway handsome, and that's as far as he ever got with his personality. So
right,
he just
feels like,
he's like expecting the charm to fall into place, and he's just like anti charisma. So
he really is, and he's just going after that one Terry. I believe.
Yeah.
He's just harassing her.
Yeah.
He's a good candidate for Jason, which we'll get into later.
Oh, he's gonna be featured heavily in a future section of this episode.
Oh yeah. So a bunch of people go like, one of the couples goes to Crystal Lake. They encounter a cop.
The sheriff, who's
Muffin, the dog, goes missing.
Yeah. The sheriff's weirdly gung-ho about enforcing the no trespassing rule at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yep. And so
he gets
they go
murdered.
into town. He gets super murdered. I'm skipping over some of the murders because we have that later.
Right.
Because of course there's Crazy Ralph.
Crazy Ralph, yeah.
Crazy Ralph was also murdered.
Returning from the first one to get garroted by a fucking piece of barbed wire.
Yeah, poor Ralph.
And then
he should know better though.
Stacked
he
in a
literally
closet.
is like, you're all doomed.
Yeah. And then
ironically,
he's hanging around there at night.
He stacks them in the pantry. They find him in the first movie.
That's true. It's
it's like Jason knew. So they and the cop gets murdered. They split up. A bunch of them go to a local bar because there's nothing else to fucking do.
Including the murderer from Clyde Buckman's Last Repose.
Yep.
Clyde Bruckman, sorry.
So weird to see him in this.
I know.
Who, spoilers, I believe survives the film?
He does.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what happened.
For
all we know, he just bails.
Everybody that goes to the bar lives.
Yeah, you're right. That's a lesson for you kids. Because what happens is they go to the bar and then basically Jason for the next...
5 people stay behind and he kills them all.
Yeah, in for like 20 minutes. The movie moves so fast once they go to the bar. It's just like bam, 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 bam. Jason's just like, fuck it. And then everybody comes back and they're like, what the hell happened here? So basically that's it. That's the key to a lot. And I want to talk about this later, which is like Friday the 13th. The key is like kill as many people before anybody gets wise, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what he does, and he's kills them all.
He's playing Among Us a little bit.
I was going to say he's playing Hitman, and I was going to say, I guess I'll say this now. I realized if they want to make another Friday the 13th game, that's what you make. Hitman, but you're Jason. Because he's basically on a stealth mission the whole time. He's just quietly killing and stashing bodies.
Right, until he's not.
And they
until
exist.
The end game.
They exist like NPCs too. Let's dance by this music. Oh, there's a noise outside. Better check it out. Like it's a perfect video game.
Yeah, they have no situational awareness. They forget about their friends the instant they can't see them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. And like then he has to go loud. And boy does he. He wrestles Paul. Ginny fucking has to run from him, and there's a whole sequence where she's running from him. Yeah. She runs into Jason's shack, which was introduced earlier, finds Jason's mom's sweater, and just because of like in the wildest gambit, like she theorized about Jason at the bar.
Right. The first couple of scenes we meet her, they plant this little seed for us that she is a psychology major, specifically child psychology.
Right.
And so then they give her this scene in the bar where she's like breaking down, and it's actually arguably one of the most important scenes in the entire franchise because it completely explains Jason.
Right, and it's funny how movies work this way with exposition, because having written a few screenplays and taken notes, this is 100% true, which is all you have to do is add like a couple lines to completely change the notes you get, and what's funny is the lines of exposition don't have to be provable. Like in this case, you never know if that's what Jason actually thinks. You just have the character go, you know what, I bet it's this and that and that. And then that's all you do. Like, I was watching Signs. M. Night Shyamalan does that throughout Signs, where people are like, I think the aliens are scared of water. And then that's true. And it's like, you don't need to actually, like, have someone learn it for using... Like, you don't have to show someone learning it through logic.
Right.
You just have someone say it.
We talk about this a lot and across the network in all of our shows, but, like, the basic plant payoff, it's very simple, but it's remarkably satisfying, and it shores up your movie from a lot of not even just necessarily just criticism, but from like obstacles in the way of the audience enjoying it. Because if we didn't have this scene, the audience would be confused as to why she would suddenly have this elaborate idea.
And it's still ridiculous that she's right, but it's believable enough that you just sort of go with it, because it's like, who gives a shit? We're watching a horror movie anyway.
Right. And it kind of, it feels right too, because like they've steeped it in so much lore. Like, it's this local legend, and it's this cursed camp, and there's all this history with Mrs. Voorhees, and then also with Jason. So it just feels like more like, oh, this is like even more of the lore, so you sort of accept it.
Right.
But it's interesting in this series because I've always known this about Jason, and it's from the NES game. I've always known that his mother's sweater is his weakness. You put it on and he can't attack it because it's his mom. So I never questioned this scene.
Right. And
like,
it becomes important in the Friday the 13th video game. It's a huge thing you can do. So, like, she puts on the mom's sweater, and she's like, because he has this shrine to his mother with her head.
Yep.
And she's like, I'm your mother. Don't you recognize my mother? And I was waiting for Jason to, like, be just under the mask, like, you're not my mother. Like, just like, I know my mother had a thick accent.
Right.
Like,
well, he just pauses and he's like, my mom's dead. That's fucked up.
Yeah. Fucked up, man. What do you think?
Yeah. What the fuck is
what
wrong
do you think
with
this
you?
is?
Like, he gets like disappointed with her.
Yeah.
Like, he gets like disgusted and leaves.
Yeah.
And she's like, Jason,
like,
no,
fuck.
come back. Jason. He's like, no, I'm
sorry.
leaving. I think it's best if I leave. Yeah. Jason, really? I was like, nope, I think it's better if I leave. And he drives off. No, he gets on Crazy Ralph's bicycle and pedals away.
Yeah, pedals away.
Because he has to have that bicycle day.
Oh, yeah. You see the bike in one shot.
You do.
It's on the roof of his shack.
He's been using the bike.
Yeah, he has.
And he threw it up on top of the shack so nobody would steal it.
Yep.
Because he doesn't have a bike lock.
Imagine robbing Jason.
You fool. I'm sure it's happened, though. I'm sure somebody's happened upon his shack. Like
I'm taking some stuff.
Like some 13-year-old punks, or like starts fucking with his bed.
There's definitely kids getting high and masturbating in that shack.
Oh, yeah.
When he's not around.
They're buried in the back.
Yeah. But yeah, so Jason falls for it just long enough to be slashed by the machete. He has a pickaxe that he apparently got somewhere.
Oh, he just picks up farming tools. Like, he has like a hammer, a pitchfork,
it's like a
and
prospector's
pickaxe.
Like, it feels like he went to an antique shop for that one, like a museum. Because a pickaxe is like, who's
right?
using
Why
that?
would he have that?
Yeah, of all the things, he later has the hay bale, the stabby pitchfork. There we go. That makes more sense. But the pickaxe, I was like, damn.
But still, not a lot of sense.
Good find.
There's no barn on this lodge.
That's true. Like, who's fucking?
I mean, I assume Jason is just. I assume he's just collecting random junk that he finds.
Yeah, but you're right. The pitchfork is also like. Where's the farm? This is a lake. Very silly.
It also breaks, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So it's probably just old junk that he buys. I just wanted to say real quick that Jason sort of buys it, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more in the upcoming section.
Yeah.
It's just very entertaining to watch him like, because you can only see one of his eyes, but you get a lot out of it.
Oh yeah.
It's just
you really do.
He's like, really? Really? I get like, he's not really buying it.
No, not really. Yeah, he's sort of like, I don't want to fuck this up.
Right.
Like, I don't want to kill my mom. And then he's like, oh, you're not my mom, but she stabs him. And he goes down, he wrestles with Paul, I believe, and then essentially dies the way a slasher killer would die, because then Ginny and Paul go back to the house. He sits her down in front of a window. And then they think Jason's at the door, but it's Muffin, the dog we thought was dead, who went on its own journey. Muffin went on a whole journey. And they're like, phew. And then Jason goes, Pwah! And fucking launches through the window like a maniac. So yeah, that's the damn plot.
Pretty much. That's the long and short of it.
Yeah, now let's go through it again, but from Jason's perspective, shall we?
Through a different set of mask holes.
Yeah. This is where we follow what Jason's up to, which is inspired by our own Jason Pargin, who pointed out the beginning of this movie specifically is very silly. That Jason Voorhees clearly rode the bike into town, broke into Alice's home, puts the head in her fridge, and then just sort of like waits for her to find it.
Well, he didn't ride the bike at this point. He rides the bike later.
You don't think he rode the bike into town?
He doesn't have the bike yet. He hasn't killed Crazy Ralph yet.
Oh, you're right. So he walked to town.
He just walks to town. And he calls her on the phone to see if she's home. This is like the most sophisticated and Ted Bundy-ish that Jason gets.
Right. So he has change on him, which he could get several ways. You know, he could find change. He could go in a wishing well. Mm-hmm. He could kill a person. Mm-hmm. He could go to a change machine with $1 and get change.
He'd have to find the dollar, but you know.
But he also calls her, which means he also has to go to a phone book.
Yeah, he has to
find her.
He has to understand how phones work. He has to understand how phone books work. He has to know what her name is. He has to know where she lives.
Yep. That's a lot of work.
Jason's dedicated a lot of time in the intervening 2 months to tracking her down. And then also he breaks into her house ahead of time.
Yes.
Or maybe while she's in the... Maybe
when does he call?
I think
it's hard.
He calls when she's in the shower. So I think what happens is while she's in the shower is when he breaks in. And he he climbs in through the kitchen window because we see the windows open. And he stuffs his mom's head or somebody's head. I think it's his mom's head.
I think it's his mom's head.
In the fridge for her to find. And then he hides somewhere. And
but so then he has to call her.
And then he calls her. That's right.
So what he does is he sneaks in the window, puts his mom's head in there, sneaks out.
And calls her from like across the street. Yeah.
Yep. And then he's like giggling. Like
this is for nobody's benefit but his. Nobody else can see this.
And then he sneaks back in while she's... I don't even know what she's doing.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, wait.
No.
He calls her and then she goes to one room. That's right.
Okay, and so he sneaks in, and then I assume he hides behind the door or something, and he's just waiting for her to open the fridge to hopefully feed the cat, because that's why she's opening the fridge. So the cat comes launching through. He doesn't know that cat's going to be there, so he knows...
He doesn't know she has any reason to go back in the fridge tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just waiting it out.
So he might be standing there until 3 a.m. and that might have to break down and just kind of like whisper through the house, refrigerator.
Right. There's another possibility, which is that Jason didn't put the head in the fridge for her to find. He put it in the fridge because it's a head.
He carries it with him and he wants to keep it fresh.
Exactly. Where he's like, I'm going to kill her, but let me put this head in here. That's the other possibility. Both are bonkers, though. So he kills her with an ice pick, and then he leaves. He goes back to the lake and just watches the road. Do you think he knew that this camp was opening, or was he just like scoping it out? Just like, there's bound to be more people at some point. Maybe
maybe he caught wind of it.
Yeah, and technically he hasn't murdered before. Or I'm sure he's murdered some things. But he clearly he got a taste for it and he's like, all right, time to keep murdering, right? This is great.
Right, yeah.
I know why my mom did this. Yeah. And so he waits by the road and he's just watching it for the first half of this movie. He's just wandering the camp and looking through the windows. And I love that he apparently runs into Crazy Ralph out there and is just like, well, hey.
Oh, this is a freebie.
And also room for only one here. Come on. I'm the weirdo watching the kids
Crazy
from
Ralph,
not you.
Yeah. He's just leering at these kids.
Yeah. So he chokes Crazy Ralph, and then
with his barbed wire that he brought with him. So he just had a length of barbed wire with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was on a recon mission, but he was like, "Listen, if someone strays from the group, I'll quietly choke them.
I'm not going to not Solid Snake them."
Yeah, that makes sense. And then at some point, he is now going to take Crazy Ralph's body and bring it to the pantry. And I just don't know when he finds time for that. It
must
could
be
any time between
must be in
now
the
and
middle
later.
of the night, right?
Yeah, it's certainly not now, which means he stashes Ralph's body. He probably puts leaves on it, and he says, "I'll come back for you later." Mm-hmm. He then...
Or he brings it to his shack. But at this is the point where he now has a bicycle. So this is what it allows him to get like to and from his shack so quickly for the rest of the movie.
Because a day passes. Mm-hmm. So he's just taking his fucking time. So you're right. He probably brought Ralph's body back.
He's gassing himself up. He's like he's spying on all these kids that are on his property. He's like, man, I wish they would. I wish they would come over here. Oh, they're coming. Shit, I better hide. So like he has to gas himself up a little bit over the next couple of days until finally most of them go to a bar and there's only 5 of them left. He's like, all right, now's my time to shine.
Right.
Get off my property. Get.
All right. He runs into Muffin, who he doesn't kill.
No. This is that's canon for Jason. If you remember, there's a bit of trivia later on in part 8 where when Jason climbs out of the water, he's supposed to kick that dog that was barking at him.
Oh, yeah.
And Kane Hodder, who was playing Jason in that movie, said, no, Jason wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and he's right.
And he's right.
Jason doesn't care about dogs or really children, like young children.
Really kids. Yeah, he really doesn't care too much about kids.
Yeah, he'll kill them later.
Does he?
So he just sort of... No, I mean, like when they grow up.
Oh, when they get older, right. Just
yeah.
Age about 5 more years, and then I'll murder you.
Yeah, exactly. And so he just, I don't know, hangs out with the dog. The dog's journey, it feels like the dog... Because at the end, the dog shows up at the door right when Jason does.
I think the dog was just having an adventure around the woods.
I was going to say, I feel like it's Jason's dog after this.
Oh, right.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's just following Jason around. Like, you smell fun. You smell like meat. Like, that's
sure
what's
does.
happening. There's just a dog following him
blood
from
on
here
your
on.
boots.
Yeah.
Just licking his shoes.
Because the dog only shows up when Jason does later. So, so he has this free dog now. He then, all right, so the kids say, let's go to Crystal Lake, and Jason is there when they're there. So that means he must have heard them say that, and he biked to the lake, or to the Crystal Lake area, because that's not where his cabin is, right? Either that or it's a coincidence. But whatever the case, the cop shows up, and Jason books it. And I don't know where that bike is at this point, because we see him run across the road like an elk. Which is so fucking
just
funny.
Scampering across the road like a squirrel.
Yeah. And so that means he got freaked out and ran and then cross paths with the cop who then chased him back to his shack. Mm-hmm. Now his shack has the bike on the roof. So I guess, he left the bike for now.
Yeah, because then nobody can take it. That's his bike lock.
Yeah. There's a baby chair. Maybe that's for the dog. A hollowed out chair, which I think is for shitting.
Right.
There's also a toilet.
He has 2 toilets.
He does. It's very fancy.
He has a cozy living room toilet, which is just a bottomless chair with a bucket, so you can just shit right through it. It's real convenient.
Yep.
And then he has a toilet in a room.
He does, which I guess that's for peeing, and the other one's for poops. He has a lantern, a single pot, so I guess that's for cooking.
Yeah, he has a little tree stump table with a single plate on it.
Yeah. He's having a little camp out. He has a shelf with nothing on it and a closet with nothing in it as well.
In case he's hoping to one day collect stuff to put in.
He's building a home.
I think some of these things are just things Jason put up because he recognizes that they are in houses.
Yes.
I think
he's playing house.
I think that's the toilet. I think he doesn't actually know what a toilet is, and he just shits in the bucket.
Right. And then he also has a hammer that he
sure
loves.
does, Dave.
Yeah. And I assume he's using that to fix up the house and kill cops.
Yeah.
And so he does
kill
that.
any wandering sheriffs.
Yeah. he gets excited and he runs back to the camp for more. Now, I have a question about the rope track. Was that a prank or did Jason set that up? Did Ted do that? Because Ted loves his pranks.
I
or
assume
did Jason?
It's Jason.
Okay. So that means he ran back to the camp and set up a rope trap.
A rope trap, yeah. Well,
Which is very funny.
He's spying on Terry as she's skinny dipping. Or I think, wait, is that Scott?
No, that's Scott.
That's
I think
Scott.
that's Scott.
Okay. So he must have set up the rope beforehand, hoping that, you know what, he was spying on them swimming earlier in the day before the cop showed up and he scampered off back to his shack. So now, maybe he came back and was like, well, these kids like to go splish splash, and so I'm going to set up a rope here and get one of them.
Yep. He also must have brought Crazy Ralph here and planted Crazy Ralph around here, right? It's unclear when exactly.
He stashed him somewhere, but yeah, it must be in between this. Yeah, it has to be sometime this day or night.
If we didn't make it clear, Crazy Ralph is killed in the woods, and then later they find his body in
He's
the
killed in
pantry.
the woods the night before, but then they have a whole
and
day
we're
where they're
reconcile that.
They're like grilling hot dogs and stuff, so we know they've been in the pantry, so Ralph can't be in the pantry, which means that Jason stashed Ralph for an entire day at least. Possibly into the night, and then moved him into the pantry and just kind of stood him up.
Right.
Just like giggling to himself.
Yeah. He does a lot of that.
He really does.
So he traps Scott, which he must have been like, that's fucking great. He must have loved that. And then he knows Terry's going to come back for Scott, so he's like, this works really well. He slits Scott's throat, nice and easy, and then Terry comes back, and he, of course, kills Terry, which is just a very smart twofer, you know?
Yeah. He's being efficient. He's being efficient. Also, I love that we see Terry later in his shack, and they didn't bother to put any wound on her or anything, so she's just laying on the floor.
Yeah.
So it's like, did he just like scare her to death?
Strangle her, I guess. I don't know.
So, yeah.
Break her
That's
neck.
True.
So he's just sitting out there waiting for the next cool thing to happen, just waiting for someone to separate. Vicky goes to her car. He doesn't go to Vicky, though, because then we have Mark.
It's a misdirect. He's back at Packanack Lodge killing Mark.
Yeah. And I obviously we have to talk about Mark's death in the next section.
Man.
But I just want to note the way the shots work out. Mark is out on the porch and sees nothing until a machete goes into his face. To me, that implies that Jason is hanging off the rafters like a spider. He's like above Mark. He's got to be.
No, he's behind him.
Oh, okay.
He comes up behind him and swings the machete in front of his face. So he
got it.
Yeah, he's like if you snuck up behind a watermelon and chopped it in the front.
Yeah,
is what I don't know why he did it that way.
I don't know, but it worked. And then at this point, he's like, "Fuck it, I'm just going inside." So he goes in, and he finds two kids fucking, and he's just like, "Well, here's a spear." I don't know where he got that spear.
It was from Ted's
I guess it was in the
earlier.
lodge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which inexplicably is a real spear.
Right. Which is fucking wild.
It shows up when Paul is telling the scary story, and Ted jumps up in like a spooky mask with a spear and a loincloth.
Right.
For some reason, that's a real spear.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Even though it's visibly plastic, it's later on in the movie they're like, no, it's totally a real spear.
So he stabs them, and then he thinks to himself, I got a great idea. I have a fantastic idea. So he picks up the bodies, and he ties them together, and he puts them behind the door. Is that correct?
He hangs at least... Oh, I forget the guy's name. I forget both their names, but he hangs at least the guy up.
He drags the rest to his shack, which is a hell of a fucking...
He has to have used the bike.
Yeah, I think he draped them over the bike and
it's a lot of weight
put
for
him
a
on
bike,
his back,
but
or put him on his back or something. Because he brings them, he definitely has to bring them to the shack here, and they show a shot of him dragging the bodies
down. At least one body down the steps, which I think it's Vicky.
Yeah, I think he takes the ladies. I think he's like, you're coming home with me to meet my mom and maybe wear her sweater. And this guy,
but he also has the sheriff stashed in there.
Well, that's because
where
the
he
sheriff
killed
was
him.
killed
That's
there.
true.
Yeah,
That's true. It does seem like he's just taking the women back to his shack.
But it's
To
also
his
possible
mom's
that
shrine.
he got the women, and then he was so tired that he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna tie this one up behind the door. Like
There's a couple-
fuck it.
There's a couple we never see. We never see Scott. I guess he might
Yeah.
still be hanging from the tree.
Yeah, I think he's still hanging.
I don't think we see the girl that got speared to the bed. I don't think we see what happened to her. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't
guess
think we
not.
see Vicky's body.
Yeah,
So I don't know
he's
where he's putting these people.
I don't know. But one
Wherever
of them,
he hid
one
Ralph,
of them he
I
stashes.
guess.
Yeah, he stashes one of them behind the door, and then I assume he hears them come home, Paul and Ginny. So he's like, I have a great fucking idea.
He hides
I'm
in the
gonna
living
get
room.
in the bed. No, he
Oh,
gets
right, he
the
gets
bed.
in the bed. That's right.
He gets in the bed
Oh,
and
no, wait, he
covers
gets-
himself with blankets.
He gets in
And
the
he's-
bed. That's for Vicky.
Oh, okay.
That's when he
Okay.
murders Vicky. When Paul and Ginny get home, it's just the room is covered in blood.
Right. Okay, so he hears Vicky come in, and he's like, I have a great idea. At this point, he's already tied one of them behind the fucking bed and moved the bodies. So he didn't bring them right to his shack yet. They're outside waiting.
He's got them stacked. Yeah, he's got them in a cooler.
So he brought those two out, and then he put the one dude behind the door, Jeff. He put Jeff behind the door, and then fucking Vicky comes in, and he hears her and gets in the bed, and he's giggling, and he's hiding and waiting for her to come in and find him. Which again, another waiting game. Like she might not have found him, but it's very Hitman as well.
She may have opened the door, seen some shapes underneath the covers, and assumed they were asleep, and closed the door and went back downstairs.
Yeah, and so oh my god, but it's again Hitman style where he's like, I'll assassinate her when she gets too close to the bed, and that's what he does. And then he drags all the bodies around like a fucking cat. He brings them to where they need to be.
We don't know
according to him.
We don't know where he takes these people.
I think this
never
is-
see
I
them
think-
again.
Yeah, I think this is when he's just like, okay, you go to the shack. Ralph, let's put you in the pantry. For whatever reason, he's just putting bodies. Like it feels like he has so many bodies, he doesn't know where to put them anymore, and he's like trying to clean, right? So he's just like stuffing them wherever they can go.
Right, he's like trying to clean the night before his lease runs out.
Yeah. So that's when he's just like hiding in the living room. He attacks Paul, and then he gets, I believe, nailed in the nuts by Ginny.
She kicks him in the balls. Yeah, it's man,
It's just a funny
boy,
thing
oh
to
boy,
happen.
and he goes like, ooh.
Yep.
Incredible moment in Friday the 13th franchise.
He chases her
They
out.
should let you do that in the game. You should be able to rock him in the nuts.
You should. He should really take a minute because it takes him a minute. He chases her out. She runs into a cabin and hides under the bed. And
Well,
he goes in.
We're not done with his litany of failures. When she's running down the
right.
street to the cabin, he leaps out of the woods at her and just misses.
Oh, yeah, just eats shit.
Probably because he only has one eye hole.
Yeah, he has poor depth perception, and at this point, he might be drunk. It feels like he's I think he's just getting murder drunk, where he's really feeling himself. And this is why he's a stealth person, because once he goes loud, it's really awkward for him because of the depth perception one imagines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he leaps out, and then she goes into a cabin, and he's got his pitchfork, and he's like, I have another idea. So he goes into the cabin and he pretends like he doesn't see her. Right?
I think
make-believe.
I think he genuinely doesn't until she pees herself.
Oh, right. And then he sees the pee.
And he says that he sees the pee, yeah.
He fakes closing the door. Like he's, again, it is like he's catching someone.
Right, he's
like a
playing hide
child.
and seek, yeah.
Yeah. He fake closes the door and awkwardly gets to on a chair. And he's so excited.
Standing on top of a chair as if he forgot he's like a 250-pound Hulk.
Yeah. And he tries to kill her, but the chair breaks
It
under
just
him. And
breaks for no reason. This is one of my favorite moments in the entire Friday the 13th franchise.
It's so good.
Jason is thwarted by random chance and physics. He
Yeah.
raises the pitchfork and the chair just fucking breaks.
It's what you said. He's way too heavy to be
He's
on that
too
chair.
big for that chair. Yeah.
He's a big boy, and he doesn't realize
this is
he's
an
a big
old
boy.
ass chair that you would
Yeah.
find in an old ass Yes, cabin. Yeah.
He's like a giant dog that
Some-
gets on people's laps.
Yeah. Some prospector sat in this chair in the 1870s.
Yeah. And so he eats shit, which is wicked embarrassing.
Breaks his pitchfork when he hits the ground.
Yep.
It's such
And then-
a fucking embarrassing moment for Jason. I love it so much.
Yep. She beats his ass and runs. And you know he just sat there for a second, recovering.
She beats his ass. You sort of glossed over this. She pulls out the chainsaw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and at this point, Jason's like, shit, am I going to die?
Right.
Like,
this is
not how I planned this evening.
one reason why the chair break is one of my favorite Jason moments is because it leads directly into the chainsaw moment, which is as he's, in a pile of his own shit on the floor, she grabs the chainsaw out of the closet and fires it up. And Jason reacts. He reacts like she's coming at him with the chainsaw. He's like, oh shit.
Yeah. That's a fucking chainsaw. Yeah, the tables have turned. You'd argue this chair single-handedly turned everything on Jason.
Really did.
Because, he might have won if it weren't for that fucking chair. And so, yeah, he has... It is really fucking embarrassing for Jason where he's like, I should be holding the chainsaw. What the hell?
Yeah, he's like mad. Oh, fuck, I didn't even know that was in there.
Yeah, there's a chainsaw. I'm using a pitchfork.
And it's broken.
Yeah, this is bullshit. She gets away, runs straight to his shack, to which Jason's like, score. He gets his prospector fucking pickaxe. And then stupid Paul gets in the way of his good time. And presumably he gets taken out, and then if it's not a dream, I guess he wakes up in a rage and just beelines it and jumps straight through the window, presumably seeing the first figure in the window.
Right. He just sprints towards the nearest living thing.
Yeah, and just jumps through like an absolute maniac.
Yeah, I guess the more I think about it, the more I think I guess that ending didn't really happen because
right, because why didn't he kill them?
Why would he leave her there?
Yeah. No, I assume he's just recovering.
Right, because he gets his shoulder separated by this machete, Dave.
Yeah, if anything...
She hacks through his collarbone. There's a major artery there.
He's like Kurt Russell in Death Proof. He's just there treating the wounds in his shack at that point.
Just weeping and pouring whiskey into it.
Yeah.
Oh, no!
So good.
So good.
I still wonder where he got that pickaxe. That's still a mystery to me because it feels like...
He must have just found it. He must have just found it in the woods.
I think when he was in town, there was an antique shop because that's the only place you find a pickaxe. Yeah, I guess it could be in the woods.
Maybe Jason does go antiquing.
And by antiquing, he just broke into an antique store. But yeah,
that's what he calls
that could have been when he
antiquing,
finds the change. The change he used for the phone was like Civil War coins. That he got at the antique shop.
It's like, you remember that Aqua Teen episode when they have the monster living in their attic and he keeps talking about juice?
Yeah.
And what he means by juice is drinking human blood and flesh.
Right,
so it's Jason's just I'm going to go antiquing tonight. And what he means by antiquing
it's just murdering.
Is marauding through town and stealing and murdering.
Yeah. He just doesn't understand.
Yeah. Going antiquing.
Yeah. So that's Jason's run.
Came home with an old wheelbarrow and 3 eyeballs.
The score. I'm going to put him in my toilet.
Yes.
Should we talk about the second best monsters of this movie?
We should, Dave. Scott.
These are the characters who aren't Jason.
Who aren't Jason, but are maybe as monstrous.
Yeah, before we get to Scott, Crazy Ralph. I love in this one his "You're all doomed" feels like it was really rushed because he goes up to the kids and goes, "You're all doomed," but he hasn't heard where they're going or what they're doing, so he's just riding his bike and he sees kids and goes,
Dave,
I better do the doomed thing real quick,
Dave.
And
there's only one reason hot young teens come to this town, and that's to work.
It's true.
Camp.
And then he just skids away because he's got other things to do. That's the other fun thing.
My favorite part of that scene is that when Crazy Ralph comes up to them, it's Jeff and I forget what the girl in the couple's name is. When he comes up to them and says, "You're doomed," it like resets Jeff's brain. He freezes and just stares at him. And after a long pause says, "What?" And then Ralph's already riding away at that point.
Ralph's already running away. Again, he's going to Trader Joe's next.
He has
like
stuff
Ralph,
to do.
He's got shit to do. It's just really funny. It's like, this is my thing. I got to do my thing.
He's got to go down to the Sunoco and take a dump.
Yeah. So that's Crazy Ralph. And then I can't stress enough, he then goes to the camp.
Right. Later on, he's just watching Paul and Ginny have sex.
Yeah, and it's like...
That's all he's doing. He's not like warning them. He's just hiding in the bushes watching them fuck.
So it really means that I don't think Ralph actually thinks they're doomed, because if he did, he wouldn't go to the fucking camp.
No, I think
he gets murdered.
Dave, I think he was just really horny.
I think so too, and I think it's his thing. You're all doomed. That's my thing.
Yeah, that's his kink.
Yeah. Next is Ted, which is Clive Bruckman.
Clyde
the
Bruckman's final repose. He's the murderer bellhop from that X-Files episode.
The reason why I thought maybe the rope thing was his, because he prank tows a car. He arranges the towing of a car as a prank, which is an elaborate fucking prank.
Right. I think he's there for the misdirect, right? So like for the it's like you were saying earlier about a single line of dialogue can change the whole audience's entire perception of the movie. So like just because the audience is aware that there's this character Ted who we see do two extreme pranks, like you're saying, the toe, and then he jumps out with a spear during the story. The fact that later on when Paul and Ginny find a bed full of blood and Paul's like, it's probably a fucked up prank they're doing. You can accept that.
Right. That's true, because the audience doesn't care, but they do that a lot. I believe there's a prankster. Is Shelley in 3 or in...
Shelley's in 3, yeah. It's the same
3.
thing.
Yeah, they keep doing it to have the plausible deniability where the characters go, it's probably a prank because we have a fucking sociopath with us that does weird, elaborate pranks. Like, that's an element they keep adding. So yeah, that's what Ted is, because he also does the bushes with the mask. Later, he's wearing like a metal helmet on the beach, like a silver helmet.
He is.
Yeah, and he fucking survives, never to return again.
He does. Yeah, he goes again. Everybody who goes to the bar lives. And I need to talk about Ted at the bar. Because Ted at the bar is trying to spit some game at the waitress. It seems like they have a little bit of chemistry, but like, the main thing is that Ted doesn't want her, not the waitress, the bartender actually, doesn't want the bartender to clear any of his bottles. He's like, no, I'm collecting them. And like by the end of it, he has like 10 or 11 bottles.
Yeah. So he's presumably just wandering in the town because he says, is there an after party? So he's just like wandering to parties with things of bottles. I still doubt if he ever went back to the camp.
He might not have ever even made it back to the camp, yeah.
Yeah, I could see him dying because of something else, or just like starting a new life, joining a cult. Like, Lord knows what happened to Ted.
Yeah, waking up on a boat and joining the Navy.
Yeah. Then there's Paul.
One more thing about Ted.
Yeah.
Ted, he's got Goofus face. He looks like a big old Goofus. He behaves like a big old Goofus. But when they do the beach scene, Ted is shredded beyond belief. Like, he's just shredded. He's chiseled.
Yeah, Ted's
all right.
Keeping it tight.
Ted's like, what? I believe in taking care of myself.
Yeah, good for Ted. Yeah. What a weirdo. He looks like fucking Ratatouille kid.
He does look like the guy from Ratatouille.
Yeah. Paul is the leader of the counselors. He is definitely like 10 years older than his girlfriend assistant.
Right. He is clearly like a fully adult man.
Yeah. One of the first things he said is keep clean during your menstrual cycle to all the women, which is just like, that's got to put you on a list. I know why he's saying it.
It's a thing about, and I think that...
And then he immediately phantoms over to Ginny with her car. Like, did you notice that? Where he says it, and then they cut to her with her car, and he's just like right next to her. He just appears,
yeah. He like rises up out of the ground next to the car. But I think there was like a pop culture rumor, I'm not sure if it's like an old wives' tale or something, but like around this time,
with bears,
there was a lot of stuff about like bears, like, oh, bears can smell your menstrual cycle. I have no idea if that's true, but it was like in a lot of pop culture in the early 80s. And for some reason, I don't know why.
The one thing I flagged with Paul is when he gets taken down, when he wrestles Jason, I think it feels like it takes him way too long to rescue Ginny. And I would argue maybe he's just hoping it'll work itself out. Because it takes him like...
He's in there... It takes him like half an hour. He's in there gassing himself up just like Jason has been for the past couple of days.
He's just like, come on, you can do it, man.
Come on, Paul. Come on, Paul. Dig deep. I'm scared. I know, man. I know.
he does the right thing ultimately, but it definitely takes him a minute. Too long.
Also, we don't know where he is. He may have been running all over camp looking for them.
Yeah,
and then he just happens to stumble upon the shack and explode in there at the exact right moment to, again, suck at wrestling Jason.
Yeah. The cop who's guarding Crystal Lake, just weird thing to do. I think they tried to make him a suspect is the idea, but it's just very funny that the cop is, for some reason, hanging out at Crystal Lake guarding it. And then before we get to Scott, I just want to point out Terry, kind of a low-key maniac. She's looking for her dog, and she's like, I'm really worried about my dog Muffin, but I got time to strip naked and swim in the middle of the night, which is just a weird thing for her to do. I know why they wanted her to do it.
Yeah,
but that's weird.
I
know why the producers asked her to do it, but it just feels like she's out looking for her dog, and then she's like, I'm going to skinny dip. And then she's like looking over her shoulder and make sure no one's watching too. So it's like, do they not have showers here? Like, what a weird thing to suddenly do when you're out looking for your dog in the middle of the night. That's all.
That's true.
Like, skinny dipping is like a horny teen thing to do.
Well,
It's to bathe. It's to wash yourself.
I mean,
it can be done for enjoyment, but not in the middle of the night while you're looking for your dog. Like, that's just a weird deviation.
The looking for the dog thing is the weird deviation there, for sure.
Yeah. Like, she was out, she's like, she has ADHD.
Well,
she's
I know people enjoy night swimming.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. So that part of it's not that weird. But yes, I did notice a lot of that in this movie. And of course, I'm not sure how much of it was like, it seems like every nude scene in this movie is a compromise. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and that's going to be the series throughout, I think.
Yeah, like Terry is nude, but like from far away. So and then like two of the other two female characters we just see in their underwear. So it all seems like well, it's a slasher movie. We gotta have the nudity in it. And like, all right, well, I'll do the nudity, but only from really far away. And then like the other two actresses were like, well, no, we'll do underwear. But again, I don't know if that's actually the discussion that happened, but
it's also like
the
the other side where they're like, when can they get nude? I don't know. When she's looking for a dog, can she just like skinny dip in the lake?
Because
I don't see why not.
It's the same thing with Vicky later, where she runs out to her car to get something in her underwear.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're at a camp, you wouldn't do that. Like, nobody would run out into the woods in their underwear.
Right, because there's other things that aren't Jason, like ticks. Like, there are things in the woods that you generally just don't want on you.
Right.
Yeah. But it's very funny.
I generally don't want to be nude in the woods.
Yeah.
Seems like a bad trade.
Yeah. And then there's Muffin, maniac dog, following Jason. But then there's Scott, who he slingshots Terry in the ass, saying nothing.
That's his opening move. That's his opening move to his.
He's carrying
this great courtship that he has in his mind. His opening gambit is to shoot a rock at her ass.
He looks like Patrick Bateman. He's like 30 years old, and he carries a slingshot like he's Dennis the Menace. Like he's just like
wearing a polo.
Instant terrifying man. Because he slingshots her in the ass, and she's like, "Hey, what the hell?" And he just stares at her, saying nothing. And I thought, like, are they dating? But they're clearly not, because later she's not having it.
Right, because she constantly rebuffs him throughout the movie.
And then all he does is harass this one woman really intensely.
Yep.
He steals her clothes when she skinny dips. When he gets killed, I was like, thank Christ, the nightmare is over.
Yeah.
Because
you wish he would have gotten it worse.
Yeah.
Like Jason just cuts his neck. You're like, man, cut his head off.
Yeah, make sure he's dead. Are we sure he won't come back?
But again, this is like kind of before that, I guess, where, I mean, the deaths are pretty extreme, but not as extreme as they get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it seems like that hadn't quite become the game of Friday the 13th yet.
No. I'd also argue the kids aren't, like, Scott is definitely the second best monster.
They're not all unlikable either, yeah. They actually...
Yeah, but they're not all maniacs yet.
Right, yeah. They actually... it's still trying to be like a more traditional thriller where like you're not going to feel any suspense if you don't care about any of the characters. So
Right.
like, they're still trying to make us give a shit about these teens.
Yeah. But now we get into deaths.
Oh boy.
So I have them all listed chronologically if you want to go through them all.
That's probably
And
the
then we
easiest
can
way
pick.
to do it.
Yeah. So Alice, ice pick in the temple.
Ice pick to the brain.
Yep. Pretty good. Ralph choked against a tree, which is fine, I guess. Pantry is kind of poetic.
It's pretty shocking, both of those.
Yeah.
The ice pick is pretty shocking, and then the crazy Ralph when you realize that he's being strangled with barbed wire, that's pretty like, ooh.
Yep. There's the mystery dog that's not Muffin that they find mangled in the woods.
Just a pile of meat, man. It could be any animal.
Yeah. Could be anything. Cop hammered to the head.
That's pretty sweet.
Yep. Scott, which is a very humiliating one, trapped and hung upside down, and the neck slid open. Just very humiliating. Found by Terry. Terry is killed off screen.
Yes.
We don't know. And then there's Mark, who has...
Mark has the most humiliating death in the movie for some reason.
So Mark is in a wheelchair.
He's like the most likable of the people that get murdered.
Yeah. He gets the machete slapped into his face, like just hit so hard that it just becomes his face. He then goes flying down the porch stairs.
He will spend the rest of his life as machete face.
Yes. He goes down the porch stairs, but it doesn't stop there because then he rolls from off the porch across the yard and down more stairs in a comically impossible way.
Yeah.
Where he had to, the chair would have had to turn. Jason is probably just like, holy shit, watching it happen, right?
Well,
this Rube Goldberg, because Jason just slapped him in the face with a machete, and then he just goes flying.
Did he?
And Jason's just like,
or did Jason push him?
Oh, he might have.
He might have, but I feel like Jason, the character that is established throughout the rest of the franchise, just slapped him in the face with the machete and just watched what happened.
I feel like he just watched what happened, frankly.
Yeah.
Jeff and Sandra impaled while having sex. Jeff never knows what hit him, so
no.
I don't know. That's pretty fun that they get fucked. They get fused.
He's like in a post sex cuddle. They're having like a nice little moment as a couple when Jason comes in and stabs them.
Yeah, Sandra sees it coming and does not warn Jeff, but I guess she doesn't have time.
Not really.
Jeff, all he knows is a sharp pain and then just nothing.
Blackness.
Just dreams.
The blessed darkness of oblivion.
Yeah. Paul is a maybe, a question mark, so we don't really know.
What
so that's
Paul.
9 confirmed kills. One of them might not be from Jason. One of them was the dog. I feel like we know the winner. Is it Mark?
It's Mark.
It's legendary. It's a legendary.
It's legendary because it's so unnecessarily punishing.
Yeah.
It's punishing this one character who like
was the nicest guy.
The nicest guy. He's like, I'm training for like the Olympics. I'm gonna get out of this
I have
chair
my whole
one
life
day.
ahead of me.
And then they just kill him in the most humiliating way. It's like weirdly cruel.
I think what it is they had this character in a wheelchair, and like I think it occurred to them when a character's in a wheelchair, that means they can die and keep moving afterwards. Like that's a thing that can happen, and so they're like, let's take advantage of that. And they did it in a way that it was, I would argue, excessive, but
pretty excessive.
I'm so glad it happens.
Oh yeah,
because
it's so ludicrously over the top.
If people haven't watched his death, because first of all, we don't see Jason, so we see like Mark's just out on the porch having a great night. Again, whole life ahead of him, and just from off camera, from the side, like a comical, like a pie in the face, a machete just goes
right
whap
through his skull at a diagonal.
Yep. And then he just goes and rolls, and then it's like a hard cut to a wide of him rolling off the porch, and then it's another wide, and it's very fast of him rolling down these stairs, these like outdoor pathway, like a hiking stairs, and it's so abrupt, and he goes so far that I guess he's on the beach at the end, and it's just, and then the movie just moves on, and you're like, did I really fucking just see that? I hope he went into the lake.
Yeah, just right into the lake. Just bury him at sea. Like let nobody see what happened to him.
Yeah, I hope he went into the lake, drifted to the other side, came back out of the lake, went down the road for a while, got hit by a car, went flying in the air, and like right into like a bear's den. Mm-hmm. Like I just wanted to keep to keep going.
It's a real Meet Joe Black.
It really is. But like my God, Mark's death. It's definitely up there in the series. It might be the winner when we get to the end, but we'll see. Because there's other deaths. There's other deaths. There's some glorious deaths.
There's some stiff competition.
Yeah. And then I guess now Jason's death doesn't count. Jason's death will only count before he becomes a zombie, right? That's an actual death. Everything else, he's still alive. So.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So
everything else,
that's
you're just
it.
making him late for stuff.
Exactly. So that's it, bro.
I think that's it. We've covered Friday the 13th, Part 2. Oh, one last thing that we didn't cover that is one of my favorite details about the movie is when Friday the 13th, Part 2 comes on screen, the title then explodes.
Oh, yeah. That counts as a death. The title's death.
The title explodes, Dave.
Yeah.
Like we're watching a Rambo sequel.
Yeah. It's such a weird title for these two. It's not a horror title. It's like, it felt like the movie was supposed to be in 3D.
Yes.
It blasts at you.
Which doesn't happen until the next movie.
Yes. Yes. And that we will get to that movie. And is that just Friday the 13th Part 3? Is it Friday the 13th 3D?
I think that may have been its release title, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking it up real quick. Part 3. Yeah, it's just Part 3 officially, but I'm sure they added a D to that. Why wouldn't they? Yeah, so it says Friday the 13th Part 3 3D on the poster. They didn't even make that connection, those fucks.
Come on,
same
guys.
director.
It's right there.
But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That's not Crispin Glover yet?
No, he's in 4.
4, yeah, so we're getting there. But that's it. That's it for this one.
Yeah.
Delightful movie.
What a treat.
Thank
what a
you.
treat for us all.
Yeah, thank you, Krishnanovich.
Thank you.
As always. And thank you all. Oh, yeah, I guess we should plug our Patreon.
Yeah, say some words.
Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's where this was done through. We have custom podcast here. We also have custom We Just Watched here. But also, for $5 a month, you can have access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. For a little more, you can watch movies with us every Friday night. We have and will again watch all the Friday the 13th movies. That is a guarantee.
Oh, yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
Pretty frequently.
We
also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters. So slap your mask-holing peepers onto that.
Yeah. Do it. Slam your fucking machete into our faces.
Mm-hmm. Yep, really bisect our faces for no reason.
Yeah.
Just cruelly,
send us down.
Cruelly bisect our heads and embarrass our dead bodies.
Yeah, thrill kill us. Murder us.
Do it.
Yeah, we dare you.
This is going to be used in court. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Bye.